This is part throttle acceleration. And this here is full throttle acceleration. This is clearly not right. So unfortunately the scan tool didn't reveal any issues, but I went ahead and checked the most likely culprit, the accelerator pedal position potentiometer. I think that's what it's called. And it tested out absolutely perfect on the bench. Nice clean signal. It has a 4.8 volt and a 2.4 volt output, and you can see that they are completely clean and going from 0 or whatever volts it's supposed to be sitting at up to whatever their max is, 2.4 and 4.8 respectively. So that is absolutely not what the problem is. Interestingly, the basic scan tool that I've got didn't reveal any problems whatsoever. So I then went hunting around on the internet and also my wiring diagrams and found the pinout for the throttle position sensor. Obviously I had this before making those previous clips, otherwise I wouldn't have known how to bench test it. Out of interest, this is out of the wiring diagram for the 210, and also this I found on the internet for the 211, which has the sensor, I believe, incorporated into the pedal, but the pinout is exactly the same as the 210, despite not being in the engine bay like the 210. So armed with this information, I immediately went out to the car with my multimeter and performed some tests. One thing was immediately obvious straight away was that the 4.8 volt channel was never moving off 0 volts. I found it basically clamped to ground with 70 ohms of resistance, and that's not right. So I disconnected the ECU, verified that the wiring was okay, but it's not the wiring. We can see that this ECU is oxidized, so this car has had water in it. We already know that because the carpet was damaged when I got this car. So yes, it has got flood damage. Hopefully this is the extent of it so far. And I went ahead and opened up this ECU, and you can see the aluminium oxide has creeped inside there. And I suspect what the issue is that the aluminium oxide or the solder itself has started to corrode around the terminals where the throttle position sensor meets the board. You can see the aluminium oxide on the housing there where it has wicked in there. Not the end of the world, believe it or not, because the rest of the board is actually completely fine, and even when looking in the area where the throttle position sensor plugs into the board, it actually looks pretty clean. So I thought, what have I got to lose? The rest of the ECU looks good, don't see anything really wrong with it, so why don't I just get out my deoxit and clean that PCB, particularly around those electrical connectors, and that's what I did. I basically flooded the area, kept it in this upside down position so that any aluminium oxide would rinse out the bottom, and that has done the trick. I of course let that dry out first, because I didn't really want to seal it up with the liquid still in there, but that's what I used, because I also used that on my other circuit board repairs, and that 4.8 volt channel was no longer clamped to ground. There's almost half a meg ohm of resistance to ground after doing this clean out task. And here we can see on the multimeter, we can see that the voltage steadily climbs up to, I believe, 4.7 or 4.8 volts. So that is now within spec. That's obviously the 4.8 volt channel, no longer clamped to ground. And we'll go ahead and check the 2.4 volt channel. Obviously that's a lot more slow moving because it only goes up to 2.4 volts. But yeah, that's working fine. Next time I test drive this, I suspect it'll be just fine.